Kids are afraid of the dark. It's a bastion for the unknown, and the unknowing is frightening. But I was different than most kids. The darkness paralyzed me. I went catatonic when I lost track of lights. When it became too much for my parents to deal with my sheer terror night in and night out, they bought 6 nightlights to brighten my room and the adjoining bathroom at all times. The only time I could sleep was when they were all working and the window was open to let in the starlight. Every little bit mattered to me. When I got older, I tried several times to abandon my nightlight habit, but each time I made an attempt to adjust the darkness, I would wake shrieking in pure terror. Sleepovers weren't something I could do. The other kids would always play games like hide and seek with all the lights off, and they'd laugh if you insist on plugging in a couple of your nightlights. I became a laughing stock when I had an episode at a birthday party of a popular kid in middle school. By high school, my parents really began to worry. As queer as it was to have a middle schooler who needs lights to sleep, they couldn't accept my issue anymore as something to be ignored. A veritable parade of psychologists, psychiatrists, and phobia specialists couldn't place the cause of my fears, and nothing they could do ever had any effect. My only choice was to live in a constantly lit up state of being. Truthfully, it didn't bother me in the slightest, as long as it meant that I could sleep in peace. It was awkward at first whenever I slept with a girlfriend. It only took one episode to either scare them off or make them accept that there was nothing I could do about it. Living in a single dorm where I wouldn't bother a roommate got me through college, and when I entered the real world, I got a job working from nightfall to sunrise in a well-lit hotel lobby. By that point, I was so ingrained in my lifestyle, I barely acknowledged I had a problem anymore. Several of my close friends spent quite a bit of time trying to help me sort out what caused my horror, but again, it was to no avail. I really didn't care. As far as I could figure, it was just part of who I was, and as long as the lights made me comfortable, I would continue to use them. It eventually boiled down to no matter how curious everyone else became, I didn't even want to know. And of course, that's when you learn. It all started with a power outage one night while I was working at the hotel. Outside, a storm was clattering and crashing harder than any had for the past couple of years. Each lightning bolt and rumble of thunder was shocking, but exciting as well. Watching the guests jump and turn each time was an added bonus. Everything was okay until every light went out at once. The wind and rain must have knocked out a power line or something, but my mind was already far away. It took every ounce of my concentration to keep from screaming and driving over the counter or something like that. My hands shook as they fumbled in my pocket for the emergency flashlight I kept on me at all times. By the time I had it out and on, the emergency exit lights had flickered on, throwing the whole scene into a red glow as the various patrons filed down to the lobby. When they all congregated, we lit a fire in the fireplace and waited for the lights to come back. My friend from the kitchen came up to hold my hand too. She was one of the few truly empathetic people in my life. Even with the light from the fire, the emergency lights, my flashlight, and all the cell phones shining blue, I was still on edge. It was like I could feel something scratching at the back of my mind, something trying desperately to get out. My friend cooed softly to me each time my grip tightened and assured me everything was going to be okay. It did little to help, and even less when my manager asked me to go check the hallways for stragglers. My heart sank. My friend and another coworker argued with him, each of them defending my phobia or calling him a terrible person for forcing me into something that might give me a heart attack. In the end, it was determined that the place was just too big to have one of the few desk agents on staff standing around doing nothing, so I set off down the long hall full of doors, flashlight in hand. There's nothing to fear. I am a grown man in this hotel. There's nothing to fear. I kept repeating that in my head over and over again as I peered around corners quickly and quietly. I'd found 2 guests wandering lost and directed them to where they were going, and a couple of kids making out in an abandoned ice room. When I managed to pry them apart, I told them to get down to the lobby, but I knew they'd just end up somewhere else. By the time I had reached the end of the first floor, I was swelling with pride. I'd been alone in the dark depths of the hotel for almost an hour, and nothing bad had happened. That's when the flashlight flickered out and the whispering began. We see you. Go hide. We'll find you. And when we do, you will come with us. My feet beneath me began to sprint faster than I could have ever gone consciously. They took me around turns at breakneck speeds, but I couldn't find any trace of emergency or exit light. After a few more turns, I realized I should have been back in the lobby, but I wasn't. No matter how far I went, it was still hallways and hallways, twisting, turning, shifting as I passed. After what felt like miles, my feet gave out and I crashed into the floor. Memories came rushing back of all the nights of darkness had called to me, whispered softly, hissed sharply. In my room as a child, driving alone at night, desperately trying to switch out a flickering light bulb. Even the briefest of darkness was punctured with the voices. They all faded in the aftermath of the terror. But they were all there again, and it felt as though they were all happening at the same time. We're here. A hand closed around my leg. Shush now. Another pressed hard against my mouth. We've been waiting for you. I was being dragged across the floor. Come with us into oblivion. They began to carry me down the hallway, back the way I'd come earlier, but my hands raking at the walls didn't feel any doors. Trying to twist away or kick proved useless. The voices only laughed and prodded at me. Each attempt to free myself was greeted with sharper and hotter pain until all I could do was comply with the darkness's will. When I finally gave in and ceased any and all struggles, the voices went from cruel and sharp to comforting. We're taking you home, where you've always belonged, with us, as we are. A crack of lightning lit up the figures dragging me along. They were tall, willowy shadows. Lightning flashed again. We weren't in the hotel anymore. The figures' faces were twisted into pained smiles. Their heads were crowned with thorns, and their eyes dripped thick black tears. The ground beneath me was sand now, and I was sinking into it. Lightning flashed, and it lit up dozens of silhouettes. They watched as the four dragged me along. They all had the same pained smiles frozen on their faces. Do we scare you? Is that why you hid? Your whole life hiding from us. I let out the most blood-curdling scream I could muster. In my head, it reverberated louder than an airplane taking off, but the oppressive darkness reduced it to the faintest of whispers. This time, something kicked me hard in the ribs. I sank deeper into the black sand. Lightning flashed again, and the gallery of twisted smilers was closer. Each bolt brought them closer and closer. I hadn't even noticed I'd stopped moving. Their gnarled faces loomed over me as I sank still deeper. The thick, black tears fell on my face and burned like acid. I was still screaming in my head, but the only sounds were low whispers and the crack of thunder. We've always been there, inside your head, just waiting to get out, just waiting for the darkness to fall. Lightning flashed again, and a twisted face sank to a spot right above me. I couldn't take it. I tried to throw a punch, but my hand was pinned down. I tried to kick, but it only caused me to sink deeper. I tried to scream, but the black sand filled my mouth. I was choking. Lightning flashed again. All the figures pressed in. The sand covered my face, but the darkness was already complete. They found me on the 3rd floor, passed out just past the elevator. The first thing my manager did was apologize profusely for making me go through with it, but all I could do was give him a lifeless nod of my head and let him know I understood. The others told me that they could hear my screaming clear in the lobby, but search as they might, I was nowhere to be found. I thanked them for their efforts and assured them I was fine. The girl from the kitchens was so relieved to see me alive and unhurt as she kissed me full on the mouth. I saw several doctors and they assured me that, medically, I was fit as an ox. A new coalition of psychiatrists diagnosed it as an anxiety attack and wrote me up a myriad of various pills and prescriptions. Each night, as I went to sleep in the same bed as my new girlfriend, we were both sure to double-check all the bulbs and switches were in full working order and that the backup batteries were fully charged. Before too long, I could function like I used to in the light. But if the lights ever got too low, if the world ever got too dark, I changed. My lips would curl into an inhuman smile. I would stretch, and thorns would dig into my head. Thick, burning, black tears rolled down my cheeks. The worst part was closing my eyes. It wasn't a way to hide anymore. No. It took me back to the dark desert where I would stand in the gallery and watch someone else get drowned in the black sand. I'd watch in tearful joy as another joined us. Welcome.